Hello, everyone. Today is Friday, December 6th, 2019. This is Kops Office Hours. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. A reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet, and to be mindful of our code of conduct, which boils down to be a good person. I have pasted a link in the chat to our agenda document. Please feel free to add your name and any items that you would like to talk about to that agenda. There is a lot on the agenda, so I'll try to keep us on track, and please do add things to make sure we have time to get to them, or track that we don't for next time. Otherwise, I suggest we jump right in. Peter, you have the first item on the agenda. Oh, I don't see. Oh, yes, there you are. Sorry. I thought I saw you. Yes, hello, Peter. You have the first item on the agenda.
Yeah. So we ran into an issue where daemon sets get updated on a kops update cluster, but sometimes they have dependencies that would only be met on a new node that would occur during a rolling update. The specific issue that I've ran into it before was when enabling the AWS Authenticator daemon set. It requires certs or some config file that volume mounted to the host, and that gets placed on instance launch. And so when the daemon set is added, the pods are in a crash loop because they don't have the old nodes don't have the required files. And then that causes the cluster validation to fail. So I'm wondering if for some or all daemon sets that kops applies, if we should replace the rolling update strategy with on delete so that the new pod spec is only applied to new nodes.
That does sound reasonable. It's not perfect, right? In that if a pod, well, what does on delete do? If a container, if the process crashes, does it update or not? Or is it only if it's a new pod?
I think only if it's a new pod.
Okay, so it's good. Okay, like we've talked about strategies involving multiple daemon sets. This feels like a reasonable, easier thing to do until we get there. I guess my other question is whether we can. Do you know if this is one of the fields we're allowed to change on an existing daemon set?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
That would be problematic if we can't.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, it's not actually. Yeah, it's not terribly problematic because you just like create a new one with a new name, but it's certainly ugly. I think we should probably try this out with the one you hit, the AWS IAM Authenticator, and get some miles on it that way in the 118 branch or the 118 target. So I think that's reasonable, and then we can see how. Have you tried this yourself?
Not yet. This is all theoretical so far.
Okay. So yeah, I'd be in favor of getting it onto like. For those who don't know, over KubeCon we had a wonderful meeting of our maintainers and some. I think we saw some of the other people there as well. So great to see everyone, and we welcome some new maintainers. So congratulations and welcome and thank you to. I can't remember Peter was, and I can't remember. I actually thought everyone was a maintainer already. Was it Peter and Ryan? Were you not officially a maintainer previously?
Correct.
And did we promote you, Eric? Or you were a maintainer, but we made a maintainer in absentia. We forced him to be a maintainer. So thank you and congratulations to all of them. But anyway, we also did a bunch of releases, and so we are basically master is, I believe, caught up at this point, and we are targeting master to 118 now, which is in 3-ish months, I imagine. So we have a lot more flexibility and breathing room to put things on the master branch than we have previously had in the past. We should probably communicate that to our users that may be running off master, who in the past have had a rough ride because of needing to build their own versions, and now may have rough ride because it's going to be fairly, the master branch is likely to be less stable than it has been in the past, where you've sort of been more constrained. But I think we should, yeah. I propose we test that with the AWS IAM authenticator, and if anyone else has any views.
I have a branch where rolling update looks at annotations on nodes, and we'll add those to the not ready set. Maybe helpful for this. Considering things in the API server for whether or not you should roll a node.
That could be good. Is that a PR or?
It is a branch. It is not a PR yet because it conflicts with the PR I have open.
Okay, so we should look at that one as well. I apologize, but we are. I'm hoping we will be able to get more of the open PRs in. But yes, I apologize for the backlog to date. So yeah, let's. We should probably. It doesn't conflict with Peter's idea of changing it to undelete. Do you think, John, or?
No, I think the mechanism may be helpful in addressing the consequences of that.
Great, good. All right, so let's give it a go. Thank you, Peter. Ztab, I don't know if you are here. I don't see you here, but there is a PR that I need to review, which I will review. Yes. And so back to Peter about our. Which actually is going to help with, I think, a future conversation, but yes, go for it.
Yes, during KubeCon, we decided that we should have this discussion on formalizing a deprecation policy. There's a few different things that we need to decide on forming, a few components of this related to versions of kops that we can cherry pick back to, versions of Kubernetes that we should support, flags to the Kubernetes components that get removed, those sorts of things. So there's a discussion in that issue, and I listed a few PRs that would be impacted by this, but yeah.
So the original one only affected older versions of Kubernetes, not things like flags or API versions. So increasing scope then?
Yeah, I guess I was just, more things came to mind, so I added them to the issue, but if we want to decide on just a subset of those, that's totally fine too.
We may be able to use Kubernetes versions to drive some of these other decisions, right? Like if we can't remove a flag that was in a version of Kubernetes that we're claiming to support. But if it's like enable ABAC or something, which is, I don't even know when that is like.
Oh, I'm talking about kops feature flags. So if it doesn't affect Kubernetes at all.
Oh, okay. Yes. What would example of that be?
That would be the drain and validate rolling update flag.
Yes.
Which has been enabled for 2 years now.
That would be a good one too. Yes, I think, has it been 2 years? That's great news.
Yeah.
So if somebody could review and approve 7909, which has been open for 3 weeks, I'd appreciate it.
That sounds like a good thing to do. I will take a look at that.
I'm starting to go through all those, so I'm doing what I can to help take some of that burden off Justin as well.
Thank you. Yes, because as far as I know, no one, are we generally happy with the functionality of the drain and validate, other than we wish it had more, like, and was faster and all that? Yes, I can't, is anyone using this feature flag in the turn it off, as it were?
I think my only worry about merging those pull requests before we have a formalized deprecation policy is it's something I've seen in discussions from SIG instrumentation before, in terms of their move to structured logging, of going, we can't really do this before we actually notify people, at least notify people, because I think that there is a risk that someone's been running for 2 years with that flag and it's not broken yet. It's not necessarily warned them yet. That's my only worry.
We have enough release branches. We can give warning now, and it won't affect them for quite a while.
That's very true. And we also, technically, feature flags are not a flag, which is like a little bit of a cheat. But yes, but feature flags have always been have always been, I'd say, more like an odd category. So, but they don't necessarily have to follow the same deprecation as flags. But yes, I think, yes, it's a good point. If we pre-announce it now, I think that will be fine in terms of like turning off the feature flag. That makes sense.
Yeah, that would be my feeling as well.
I would like to have the conversation about Kubernetes versions. Like Kubernetes, the Kubernetes upstream project only supports 3-ish versions.
Yeah.
3, was that 3?
It's 3, yeah.
3. And so I think there was a debate about going to 4, but it's also like there's weird like fence post issues. So let's call it 3 or 4 versions. The kops, in theory, supports the very first version of Kubernetes we ever ran. So like there's still code in there for
at least 1.5 for sure.
1.5.
Yeah, there's at least one. I think there's pre 1.5.
And while that is good, I don't think we want to be encouraging anyone to be running 1.4 or 1.5. And we shouldn't. I think it's fine to like extend it by a little bit past the Kubernetes official support, but I don't think it's helpful to anyone to support 1.5 at this time, for example. So the question is,
maybe we give them an extra year or something, like, you get something like that.
We did have this discussion like probably 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and so we do have it documented in our README that technically we have the same support, but that means, I think how we have it worded is we support what Kubernetes versions are supported. Therefore, so what, they're 1.16. So we support 1.16, 1.15, and 1.14, which means we support kops on all those versions, which 1.14 then, if that's the same policy, that supports 3 versions lower or something like that. And so I think no matter what, we need to clarify a lot of that. And in my opinion, also new contributors who come in and look at the code, anytime they see the greater than Kubernetes 1.5 in the code and whatnot, or my favorite is the one that I think Eric was referencing, the ones that we have like pre 1.5. It's just like, oh God, it's fine. And I think it's fair for us to also say, it's fine to run this older stuff if that's your requirement and your choice and all this stuff. We just think that we can't provide you the testing and support that our product.
You're going to get a better quality of service if we can get you more.
So good luck on 1.5, but you might want to make a new cluster by now, and definitely don't plan to upgrade that cluster all the way. Definitely make me, you know what I mean?
I feel like the answer of like double the window feels like, we figure out what the window is, 3 or 4, feels like the right answer. I'm not sure that the intent of like the kops like supports 3 versions back and we support 3 versions back of kops. So therefore I don't know if that was deliberate, but it certainly feels like a reasonable number. I guess we should circulate that policy and see how people feel about it. I don't know, so concretely today, that would mean, or in 2 weeks or whenever it is, when Kubernetes releases 1.17, unless it's actually dropped, I don't know what it is. By the end of the year, 1.17, so 1.16, 1.15, does that mean 1.14 is going out of support for Kubernetes?
Yes.
For Kubernetes.
Okay,
Correct.
so in theory, kops 1.14 is going out of support. So 1.15 will be that supported one, and kops 1.15 supports 1.15, 1.14, 1.13. So we're talking about dropping support for 1.12 at the end of the year. So the question for the people on this call is, would that hurt anyone? Like 1.12, is anyone still running 1.12 or earlier?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's certainly very likely. I mean, GKE, their default is at 1.13 right now, right?
So that does imply it's a little tight to say 1.12. So we could start off easier, right? We could start off by deprecating. We could announce an intent to get.
How about anything
there,
before 1.6?
Yes, we could announce an intent to get there and like pick a number like 1.8, 1.9, like another 3, and we'll start there, and then we'll gradually say, look, like you shouldn't be running more than N releases back. And I imagine we're going to go to 4. It sounds like we're going to go to 4 because it is really awkward around now. And so that would give us If we did double, that would be 8, which is a lot. That's like 2 years. That's a long time.
There's a slightly different aspect. I just fixed a bug in upgrading off of 1.9 the other day. So we should decide how long that's going to live.
That's a great question. Because in theory, you have to upgrade 1.9, 1.10, 1.7. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea there would be that we would support upgrading from, but not management of, or.
I mean, that's pretty difficult, but yes.
That's, well,
yeah, I'm just trying to understand what
it's something to consider. We don't have to answer it today.
Yeah.
Or use an older version of kops that does support the version you're from to upgrade to it, the next version of Kubernetes.
Yes, but then, yes, that does mean we then have to support that version of kops as well, for which we sort of do anyway. For that sort of like a bug in upgrade would be a bug that would be cherry picked. But yeah, this is indeed complicated. I'd suggest what we start with is let's pursue some form of strategy on this issue, and pick a number that is not going to cause anyone any problems, like 1.8, 1.9. Pick some threshold, 1.10. Like anything, well, something like that, and be like, I presume, all right, I presume 1.8 would not cause anyone any problems. Because, and that also means we get rid of the 1.6, 1.5 stuff. That will actually clear a lot of stuff, I think. So it's a fairly easy starting point to say 1.8, and then we can push the window a little. I feel like 1.8 is too far, but we can also then like.
1.8 makes a big difference, though. It definitely allows us to trim a bunch of stuff,
Exactly.
And that gives us that sets us in the right direction. So I think that's good.
Plus, I feel like anyone that's running Kubernetes 1.8 is probably not running kops 1.16.
Correct. They're probably not running off the master branch.
If you're out there and listening to this now, come find us.
Yes. Yeah, I think also, yes, that will be good. I think we could also start to add some warnings for the window. So if we pick a longer window and then we add warnings for people that are in the window of question, that might flush out some people. Same sort of way we do like most of our deprecations with just a warning or a warning with an environment variable you have to set to say I know what I'm doing type thing.
Somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody brought up something about the structured logging relating to those warnings. What was the proposal on that, or the action on that, or what's going on with this?
Do you mean a couple of minutes ago?
Yeah, just a couple minutes ago.
That I was referring to a different discussion in SIG instrumentation that went on, probably a year ago, around moves towards structured logging across Kubernetes libraries. It wasn't actually specific to this.
Okay.
I think that's just around the Kubernetes has some fairly strict rules around deprecation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just get one more food for thought before we wrap this up? Because this just actually broke my brain. Kubernetes 1.9 was cut December 15th, 2017. That was only 2 years ago. I felt like 1.9 was like 5 years ago.
Oh.
Feels like much longer ago. So anyway, just stuff we got to keep in mind.
Are you saying even that might be too tight?
I'm not saying anything more than that.
Okay. 1.6 is the one that has the big payback, right? So we could be more conservative and do 1.7 or something, and it also has we could change it to drop support for less than 1.7, which would also mean we break the PRs up smaller.
Which are we talking about doing this only in master, or are we talking about cherry picking these back to 1.16, 1.17? What are we actually talking about doing this?
I would suggest only master.
Well, I would vote for being more aggressive. Siemens master, we can put warnings in now.
We could put I like that idea, but I would say I don't know why we would I don't particularly want to do the work to cherry pick removals back.
No, I'm okay with not cherry picking the removals. Just as long as we cherry pick a warning or something back, then I think we can be more aggressive than master.
Yeah,
at minimum something in the release notes. Hopefully we can get something in code as well. Then. Yeah. That'd be good. Cool.
That's really great. All right. Peter, I feel like we should mix this up a bit, shuffle. But yes,
Yeah,
I
we
guess
should.
this is the problem. Like everyone adds their things in order. But yes, okay,
Yeah.
let's go through it in order.
This should be fast. Terraform 0.12 has different syntax, and the bigger issue is there's a more restrictive naming scheme for resources. They can no longer start with a digit. And our AWS routes, the default route starts with a 0, 0-0-0. And so we can update the naming pattern for Terraform, but the problem will be that when they go to apply it, because the resource name changed, Terraform is going to try to delete the route and recreate it, which could be, problematic for their network. So we need a way, we need a warning or something, if we think this is the best way to do it, a warning to say, hey, if you're using Terraform 12, you need to use this Terraform state commands to rename the resource in the state file. I just want to make sure that this is something that we agree on.
I don't know. It sounds ugly no matter what you do with it, I think.
There's no alternative, right? That's what I was going to ask. There's no like magic flag to Terraform we can pass. Like, don't be mean. Okay.
No.
Well, in that case, I mean, I guess as I understand it, people are moving to Terraform 0.12. Like it's not like people are sticking on 0.11. We could continue to support without too much trouble. Here we are, another future deprecation. We can continue to support without too much trouble, like Terraform 0.11 style. I don't know if that feels like it might be important to people, but
Our original idea with Terraform 12 support was to guard it with a feature flag. So people that want to use 12 can enable that and then deal with the resource renaming. And then eventually we need to flip it.
There is I'm just worried that people by default, most people are going to be using Terraform 0.12. They're going to download Terraform. They're going to like notice it doesn't work. They're like, what is this? Kops doesn't work. And so we should probably make it work with that scenario. I do agree that we should have, a feature flag would be great to support it one way or the other with
or add like an additional target, CloudFormation, Terraform 0.12.
Yeah, that could work.
That actually sounds like a good idea, I think.
Or Terraform 0.11 maybe.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, have two different targets. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would make the default 0.12 for new clusters.
I think also in Terraform we can now write out there are some like version constraints you can write out to give people messages. So it will be less cryptic, right?
Yeah, you can say only allow this on Terraform 12 and stuff will break if you try to run it with the wrong version or vice versa. So
that feels like, doing that and feels helpful, and then a release note, and I think, and then we could also change it to when we write Terraform 0.11, the older form. I don't know if we can put a less than 12 requirement, then the message, we could also put a comment above it, and then hopefully it'll be very obvious to users like that it's why the problem arises.
Are we aware in code anywhere if someone has used Terraform previously?
I don't believe so. We could look, right? We could see if you're overwriting a file, which will be presumably the common case. But it's not a guarantee that people are doing it that way. You could look at the cluster, I guess.
And look at the naming of the resources. Is that the idea?
Well, they should be the same, but I'm wondering if we could, first of all, we could like pave the way, right? We could start labeling like, am I using Terraform? Am I using something else somewhere? The other thing we could do is like if you're using Terraform and the cluster already exists, presumably you used Terraform before. And I think we do know whether the cluster exists or not because we have some checks on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's possible. We could certainly log a warning a big old warning if you're doing Terraform. We make Terraform 0.12 the default customer. We don't know the version. Never mind. I was going to say, but and we like log whenever that happens, but then that would hit people that just went 0.12 and just did a normal update. So yeah, we'd have to. Why don't we start with the new behavior, which feels like we should do it, and then we can add appropriate release notes and see how. If we add the constraints, we can probably. I suspect that will be good enough to help people discover it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep us moving on. GeoJazz, Eric.
There's nothing really to say here other than I'm interested in, this is more of a statement of intent than a discussion at this point. We don't have enough time for discussion, but my intent is to move the GCE stuff to GA. I'm tackling that. I wanted to talk more about that, but I thought we might have more time to talk, but I don't think that's going to happen today. So I'll catch up with Justin a different time on that.
That sounds great. Thank you for your help on that. That would be really great to see. I think
I would say that we probably want CI tests running on GC infrastructure before we go GA. That should be a blocker.
That's yeah. I have a bunch of notes about things that I'm interested in. I perhaps should write up an issue on this if there isn't an issue. I think that would be useful.
I think that'd be great. About like a tracking issue.
And everybody can comment, and then we'll work through it. Thanks.
And yeah, the CI is indeed the blocker, and I think it will. We actually have some CI, but they're not green, and it's.
Yeah, and there's some. They're all in the AWS. It's all kind of. We'll go over it another time.
Okay.
It's organized interestingly, I would say.
Okay, cool. Containerd, Hackman.
Yep, I'm back.
Hey.
Hey. So last time you were talking about adding support for Containerd, I think. I started doing some other thing. I wanted to split Containerd from Docker because at the moment they're kind of two separate things. And even the discussion about the tarball distribution would not work now because Containerd service wouldn't be part of that, I think. You don't manage it in any way at the moment, right?
The Containerd service?
Yes.
Correct. We do manage the Docker service, and maybe it doesn't like for Containerd, but yes, I think you're right.
So this is how I started. So after that, one thing led to another. I asked on dev chat if it would be interesting to try and continue. And right now it works. To me, it doesn't look very bad. And there weren't many workarounds, or I don't know. But it became kind of huge PR. 61 files, something. I guess 10 of them are important, but I don't know. If this is interesting and you think it should, well, it's good quality and should be included, maybe we should find a way to do a code review, because being so big, it would start clashing with many things.
Yes, I will certainly do. Thank you for this. This is really like super important stuff, and I will take a pass on this code and do a code review. It's
so don't want to get in front of some other people or something like that, but it seemed like something pretty interesting to do.
Definitely.
I'm also interested in this, so I'll also review it. It's one of the things I mentioned at KubeCon. One of the things I just skimming through the PR that I probably would want to ask real quick: do we want to keep adding support for separate CNIs and with separate structures, or do we just want to create a separate structure that says, "Hey, supported CNIs," and we build everything under that? Otherwise, we're going to have the Docker, Containerd, next Kubeman, or whatever else someone else wants all in there. I don't want to know if we want to abstract it sort of like we do for the CNIs.
Sorry, so what would it look like? if we didn't put them in line?
Kind of like what the AWS CNI Cilium do, because we have a CNI and then you pick the CNI and configure it under that, correct?
Oh, I see, like nested.
Yeah, just nest it, yeah. Otherwise, this is going to just keep growing and growing. It's not the most horrible thing. I just see that our main spec keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yes. I mean, it's still going to be growing, right?
Yes,
it's just going to it's going to be better structured.
If we can do anything to nest some of this and kind of hide some of that away, it might be nice in the long term.
Yes, it's also tricky because Docker is not nested, right?
Yeah.
So should we?
So,
Yeah.
but if we start any future ones nested, we can then go and think about cleaning up Docker in the future.
Everything comes back to that deprecation policy.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Let's have a look at the PR and try to figure it out. So, I mean, I think it's great that there's I was looking at, like, there's this container runtime string, which is I can't remember what it's called, like a selector or something, not a selector, but the idea of a string that tells you which of a set of alternatives is the active one. That's really important for apply semantics. That's great. The nesting would then give us some indication of the scope of that, which would be good, but yeah, I don't know. Well, on the other hand, like moving Docker is a bit of a thing.
Well, yeah.
Or we could just leave Docker in a weird place, but then that's, again, weird.
I think there's quite a few people trying to clean up the Docker one as well. Like there's folks trying to move how it gets installed because of all the dependency issues we've had. There's folks trying to install it in different ways. So it might not be a bad spot that we're in, or to start cleaning some of that up.
I guess the other thing is, my understanding is that Docker itself would rather that we, as of a couple of months ago, I don't know if this has changed, that Docker itself would rather that we used containerd on servers. And so Docker is itself a wrapper or something, of some sort of wrapper around containerd. This is just my understanding. Please feel free, anyone, to correct me if I am wrong. And so we should be, like, maybe in future we don't ever install Docker and we do install containerd, and that is what everyone would prefer from everyone, like all around, both us and Docker and Kubernetes and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, if we get it into some version at the moment, by default, it still installs Docker and everything as it is now. So we can experiment with it and see if it actually works on servers without too much trouble. Because it's a bit different. I mean, loading stuff, there are different features in there, but I don't know. By the way, regarding the upgrades, I also sent a PR for pulling packages with dependencies instead of using RPM and deb to install them in the startup. There are still some catches in that function module, but the idea would be that we may be able to reduce the hard-coded dependencies, at least on CentOS-based systems. And I don't know, it's better to just pull them at startup than to wait until the night for the updater to do it.
Okay, is that a different, you said that's a different PR?
Yeah, just look for,
okay,
search for me as.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so also if you need any help with other stuff, let me know. I have some time.
That is a dangerous offer to make, but thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you also for taking a look.
Yes, I will definitely take a look. It sounds like, Rodrigo, you're going to take a look as well. It's giving it a look great. I think the nesting structure is interesting. Our discussion is interesting, and yeah.
Okay.
Should
we can discuss separately or something, you know?
Yeah, perhaps on the PR. Because I'm conscious of the time, so should we keep going?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joshua, do you want to talk about rolling updates?
Yeah, so I feel like I've seen a few PRs and work around the rolling updates. and I kind of just wanted to see if like we can come to a consensus or get something going, because I know most people I talk to at KubeCon are also wrapping kops to do more, I guess I'll say, sane or safe rolling updates. And what I mean by that is specifically not rescheduling things more than once. And I think 7407 is the PR that does kind of what I want to do, I'm pretty sure.
7407 appears to be inactive. It has no tests. It's been configured for several days. And is the author of it here? So I might suggest to be more productive to look at 8021. It's because I'm here.
Well, yeah, those are the two we in the
yeah, I
sessions,
linked
think,
both. So I was mostly pointing out the detach functionality.
Well, I think 8021 is complementary to detaching or surging. I do not want to boil the ocean in one PR. I will get to surging once I get more of the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't necessarily have a preference on how it's implemented or when or what order. I just mean, what are other people's thoughts? And, you know, clearly you have you want to get these PRs going. We need to kind of see what people want to do. I just wanted to talk about it. So
I think I would just say, I think both PRs definitely address sort of the issues before that we had, where like they were boiling huge oceans in terms of size. So they're now much more like reviewable. I think, John, thank you for the one with the tests and all that. I think, yes, I will try to look at both, because I agree we should get this rolling. I think we were debating whether like block on cluster API. I still want to get cluster API going, but I think we've agreed that we should not block on the future cluster API, and so we should implement reasonable functionality.
So 821 adds a function for making per instance group configuration of the rolling update strategy. I'm not sure or I'm not confident my API machinery is entirely idiomatic, but I would definitely appreciate a review on that. And I will try to address any concerns raised.
Thank you, John. I don't know if someone else said something I didn't hear.
Oh, it was me. It was Ryan. I said I'll take a look at 821.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I think the strategy idea is actually super useful as well, because we probably also want the idea in future, not necessarily this PR, of like strategies for like, do we back an instance group with sort of kops auto scaling group behavior, or do we want to back it with a machine deployment in the future? So this is all great stuff, and great line count, great ratio of like functionality to line count. So I think we should definitely get one, or perhaps both of these in, depending on, I don't know the exact functionality. Josh?
My plan is to basically subsume all the features that are in 7407, but with tests.
Okay, cool.
But key to the instance group config.
Okay. Yeah, I need to catch up on why we're at the state of these two is, so I will take a look at both them. Thank you, John, for the ongoing commitment. All right, Josh, was there anything you wanted to add there, or did we basically cover it?
No, that should be fine. As long as we're moving forward on those, then
Yes.
I'll keep what I have on my side, but I will hope to review PRs and try and get it going further.
And definitely, if there are use cases or tricks that we are not doing, we should, like make sure that we have issues, or that you share them. That would be wonderful. Or send PRs.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing that I was saying is just, right now, if I detach all the instances, let the ASG detach and cordon, let the ASG bring up new ones or taint them, whatever, and let new things go to the new, and then start draining one at a time, I get the sanity that I want. And I'm pretty sure that those PRs support that too, in some combination.
That sounds great. Yes, having better functionality there would be wonderful. And we are hopefully a little bit more unblocked on master now. Now we have 3 months till the next Kubernetes release, as it were.
I did put it under a feature flag.
You might not even have to, but thank you. All right, let's carry on, because I want to try to get through the agenda for everyone, to be fair. BitTopaz. I don't see you here under the name BitTopaz. That does not mean you are not here. Yes. I double negative myself. I don't see you here, but I presume you are watching on the video, which I will post diligently. There are 2 PRs, which I will take. It looks like you were just asking about 2 PRs, so I will take a look at those 2 PRs. And I apologize for not having merged them earlier. John, new features in V1 Alpha 1, V1 Alpha and V1 Alpha 1 API.
Yes, so I have a PR to remove the directive to add new features to V1 Alpha 1. I would appreciate your review on that. It's been waiting for a while.
Yes, I think it's a good idea. The challenge is this gets into like deprecation, and it gets into the API machinery rules, where if we have two API versions that are both active, my understanding is they have to round trip between them. So in other words, you should be able to go back and forth between the 2 versions and not lose data. And this is important for reasons. The reasons are, for example, like an old client or a V1, this was a V1 client reads it, and then if we drop the field when it wrote it back, it would lose the V2 functionality. So the rules are, the API machinery rules are that we have to keep adding enough fields that we can round trip, which basically means the simple options just add the same fields, to all active API versions, all supported API versions. Now, this is why I think it gets into the idea that, like, should we deprecate V1 Alpha 1? I think we probably should. V1 Alpha 1 is, I don't know how many years old. I think probably more than 2. Or V1 Alpha 2 is probably more than 2 years old. I think a good time to do that. And also, like, I think we're also planning on not supporting V1 Alpha 1 with the CRDs. So that feels like a natural time to do this. So I think we should, oh, you were there right there 2.5 years ago. We should deprecate V1 Alpha 1, but I don't know that we can actually stop requiring, I think all our tests will break if you only add a field to V1 Alpha 2. I hope all our tests will break if you only add a field to V1 Alpha 2.
That is not the case.
That is disappointing because it means we need more test coverage, but that's at least my understanding of like the API machinery rules and why we have, why we keep adding fields to V1 Alpha 1, even though we hope no one is using V1 Alpha 1.
Do you want a PR to remove V1 Alpha 1 from master?
We should deprecate it. That one, there are rules about, I'm afraid.
Oh, we do have 2 releases to go.
That is true. Should we pursue this on the deprecation, like Peter's deprecation, this like issue, and try to figure out the right? I think we should deprecate V1 Alpha 1. I'd like to get to a point where we remove V1 Alpha 1. I would like to follow the rules. As you point out, we might be able to deprecate it now in whatever the alpha is. Whatever our latest, like 1.16.0.
16.
Yeah.
I'm all for deprecating. Is there a reason we're in a rush to do this? Like, can't we just handle this as part of the deprecation policy?
I don't like to spend time adding features to dead API versions.
Agreed.
That's fair. There is a, I have to be careful. The API guarantees have in the past like provided stability in Kubernetes, have provided stability for users so that their existing YAMLs never broke or broke in a controlled way. So there's plenty of notice. And so it is super tempting. And we have seen people that have gone into Kubernetes and like just removed all the old versions and said, wow, I've removed all the old versions and it's smaller, right? And that's great, but it's not really the Kubernetes way. So the Kubernetes way is just to deprecate and like follow the procedure. I agree with you. It is annoying. And I do think we should, or there is a cost to it. I think we should deprecate and follow the policy, and I think we should use the open versions to make that less painful on ourselves. But I'd also like to not break the rules. And if I break the rules, I get in trouble. So let's not break the rules. But I think also, unfortunately, the rules are defined in terms of time, not in terms of release. Or is that true?
I think it's both, but
So,
the longer of the, at least the shorter of the two, I think, off the top of my head.
How about we agree we deprecate V1 Alpha 1 ASAP, and then we can figure out how soon we can remove it. Is that fair, John?
Yes, I think so.
We should also look at why the tests aren't blowing up, but maybe we can not worry about that too much. Okay, thank you. That is, I mean, it is important at the same time, and I appreciate your raising the issue, because it's important to like make development efficient, but we also want to. Those rules are part of what makes Kubernetes nice, and perhaps that isn't really what we're doing here, but like V1 Alpha 1 is not necessarily like the bit where it really matters, but that's in general, like we should try to follow the rules, I guess. So let's start the deprecation clock going, and then we can hopefully get to a better place. And
okay. We already dealt with my next one, so skip over it.
Okay. Drain and validate rolling update feature 5. Yes, great, thank you. Peter.
Yeah, just really quickly, our cherry picks to 116 have a end-to-end test that I added recently, and they're failing, which means we can't cherry pick anything to 116 right now. It's because of the volume permissions bug that you, Justin, fixed in the Kubernetes repo, but it only made it into 117 and not 116. So I opened a cherry pick in there, and they need to decide whether to accept it or not. If they do, it should pass. I think if they don't accept it, we should just disable the end-to-end job. So
that is a good point. I don't see why. Yes, I don't know whether I can approve this.
I couldn't find like policy on cherry picking test changes back in Kubernetes versions, so
yes,
I wasn't sure.
It's a difficult one. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, anyway, thank you for that, and that's a good heads up. And yes, I agree. If we can't get it merged, then we should just make sure we have whatever test coverage we can have, rather than no test coverage at all. Oh, you're saying you would disable the whole E job,
or make it optional? Yeah.
Or yeah, okay. Or the we can also like exclude certain tests, right? But it's a long list of tests, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. I can try to take a stab at that if the cherry pick is not accepted.
All right. Well, we'll apply some pressure to get the cherry pick accepted. Ryan, mixed instance policy bug.
Yeah, when we were upgrading our clusters to 1.14, we hit this issue. It's an issue I think we fixed in 1.12, and then a cherry pick in 1.14 to fix a different issue reverted. So if you're using Terraform currently in 1.14 and using mixed instance policies, rolling updates force a node roll every time. It always thinks that there is a version change. So that cherry pick, the PR has been merged to master to fix that at this point. There's cherry picks opened for 114, 115, 116 to get that backported. But should we cut a new release is the question. If you're using mixed instance policies, it's a pretty serious issue.
And the consequence is it falsely recommends you need to rolling update?
Yes, every time, every node.
I mean, we certainly, we certainly are on the side of recommending a rolling update or of doing that, but I agree it's certainly disruptive. It feels certainly like it should go into 115. The only debate is whether it should go into, or the debate in my mind is whether it should go into 114, kops 114, given we have 115.0 out, but it is a relatively recent release, so I wouldn't be opposed to putting it into 114. I don't know how other people feel. I'm doing a 114.3, can't remember. What are we on?
I definitely agree on the 115 and 116. They look like they're already approved. 116 is currently failing a test, it looks like. 114, yeah, I could go either way.
Yeah, I guess I've for our use, we've already caught a release of our own internally for it with that in 114. But like I said, if we're supporting 114, it feels like it's a pretty serious bug for anybody that's using mixed instance policies.
Why are we opposed to 114 with it when it's just because of our support policy?
I wouldn't say, I think opposed is too strong, but just questioning whether it's of sufficient.
How critical?
Yeah, criticality to go back to like when we have a different latest version that, but I think let's at least put it on the branch. Well, but then if we do that, we're sort of like, it's a bit weird to never release it. Why don't we do it? People are probably still running 114, kops 114, it doesn't feel. Here's an idea. Let's put it on 114, but also if there's anything else we want to get in there, like the Terraform 012 warnings, we could like consider cherry picking that at the same time. But yes, let's put it on 114. It feels, given the status of our rolling update not being the fastest, it feels sufficiently annoying that we should probably do that.
Yes.
And then last topic, Rodrigo.
I know we've discussed this before, but importing bindata.go. I know we currently don't commit it, and anyone that tries to import kops as a library fails miserably because of that. So how I do it, and how I believe some of the folks on this call do it, is they generate it locally after they clone the Git repo. I don't know if there's any way around that due to the nature of bindata. I'm not sure we really want to be committing that. So question is there anything we can do? And if not, I'll just make notes somewhere in the repo, just add more documentation why we can't, because this is something that's come up in the past and it keeps coming up again and again.
Yeah, as I recall, the reason we didn't do it was because it caused a lot of conflicts. Is that true?
I don't know. This was when you, Chris, and some other folks were involved. I don't think anyone else in the call was, so.
We certainly commit other generated code.
Okay.
Like the API machinery code. Bindata is, in theory, easier to recreate, but it's certainly like any hiccup there is problematic. And there is a general policy that Go code should be Go buildable, Go gettable, and we're not Go gettable. So that's not great. I don't know of a way around this. Like it would be great to say, no problem, we don't even need to generate this at all, but I don't know of such a way. I would therefore be in favor of doing something like this. Sorry, go on.
I believe most of bindata is actually all the add-ons we have, right? So if we did move to add-on manager, which fetches from somewhere else, eventually we could get rid of this. However, I don't know when we'll be in that situation.
Yes, we also, I think this is a good thing to do. We also, I think, have an outstanding issue, which we've sort of shied away from to date because we've been focusing on catching up, which was to update our version of Go bindata to something a more recent version. Mm-hmm. I think it's also changed canonical locations. Yep. We could also reevaluate whether there is as I recall, it also like optimizes, like it compresses it or something. So it like optimizes, like the output is a little bit weird, and it or the Go code is optimized for runtime rather than for development in a way that probably doesn't matter for us, or probably doesn't matter for our users. Like the 100 bytes that we save is probably not the biggest deal in a 100 meg binary. We could also look and see whether there's a library which is like better at avoiding merge conflicts. But yeah, I think in general we should try to get this. We should try to commit it, and I think, yeah, having kops be Go gettable. Like we are seeing a lot of people using it as a library, as imagine you are, and apparently TIKV. I think that's how you pronounce it, but which is a cool project. So
I'll check out if there's any feasible replacements that are better at merging and work it that way.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. And I might we can also just tell bindata not to compress or something if that's in fact the issue.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless someone added something in the last minute, we reached the end of our agenda. We did some releases. I put some holding, like some standard, like we should look at Kate's versions and do some AMIs, perhaps as the release plan for the next 2 weeks. I think probably the real goal should be to I guess, enjoy Christmas time, but also to get some PRs, the PR backlog. Now that we have caught up a little bit on releases, Kubernetes releases, I think getting through the PR backlog would be the next focus, I would guess. And cherry picks. Cherry picks, we can actually have the 117 release come out in a timely fashion. But otherwise, we are at the top, or almost at the top of the hour. I don't know if there's any last thoughts anyone wants to add, or whether anyone has any other things they think we should be focusing on over the next 2 weeks, other than basically focusing on catching up on the PR backlog. Feels like the next big step. All right, well, thank you all for all those PRs.
Thank you.
And I wish
Thanks.
everyone a very happy 2 weeks.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.